Welcome to Deep Thought Clips. Before we get started, please consider dropping a like at the end if you enjoyed the video. I'm a fictional writer and I express myself through stories. If you enjoy this kind of content, you can hit the subscribe button below. Tonight, we unveil a chilling tale. An experience from one of our subscribers, a story of a caregiver, and her paranormal experiences on the job. Let's get right into the email. Good day or good evening. My name is Rose. I love your channel. I hope this email finds you well. I really enjoyed your last video, and it inspired me to share my own experience with you. I've been a hospice nurse for over 20 years. I have held the hands of patients as they take their final breaths on Earth. One patient in particular, specifically their home, has been the most paranormally active place I've experienced in my 20 years of working in this field. It all started back in 2020 in Reseda, California. I worked at the Kaiser Hospital in the Woodland Hills for 10 years before I was let go due to a certain pandemic. It was a blessing in disguise, actually. But as a single mother trying to put my son through school, the uncertainty of how I would provide for my child weighed heavily on me. One fateful day, while at the supermarket contemplating my next move, a tall, beautiful woman with striking white hair and piercing blue eyes walked past me and complimented my perfume. This small interaction led to a 45-minute conversation about our lives in the middle of the bread aisle. Her name is Angela. She mentioned knowing someone who required a caregiver but wished to avoid the high costs of going through an agency. It felt like divine intervention. Angela provided me with the details and the address of Joseph, an 88-year-old Russian Jew with a military background living in the hills of Sherman Oaks, known for his violent temper and the dysfunctional relationships within his family, according to Angela. Joseph was a challenge I never expected to face. I knock on his door the very next day. It was a beautiful two-story house that looked like it was made of stone, comfortably nestled between lush trees and thriving plants all around. After a few minutes, Joseph opens the door with a face so red and eyes so intense, he looked like the devil himself. He asked me, "Why the hell are you banging on my door?" with his mouth clenched as he spoke through his teeth. I was taken back a little, but honestly, I've seen worse working at the hospital. I quickly tell him my name and that his friend Angela sent me. She gave me his information to inquire about a possible caregiver position to assist him around the home. He slams the door in my face and tells me through the mail slot that he doesn't know an Angela and that he most definitely doesn't need a caregiver. I brush it off and I start to walk back to my car. I hear the door swing open and the voice of a sweet old woman calls out my name. "Rose!" A small woman about 5 feet tall comes out of the home. She gave me a big hug and told me they were indeed looking for a caregiver. Joseph apologized and asked me to please come inside for some coffee. Joseph's wife, Grace, explained to me that he started showing signs of dementia and schizophrenia a few years ago. For someone who is almost 90, this is not an uncommon thing to hear in this field. She also said that he has been asking about people from their family who are no longer alive. Some have been gone for over 50 years, she explained to me. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't spooked a little, but the thought of making stable income and reducing my financial anxiety was all the motivation I needed to accept the job. Joseph and Grace were very nice to me. I would assist him with preparing his food, changing his clothes, and giving him his medication. Pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, Grace passed away unexpectedly 6 months into the job. I was asked by their eldest daughter, Ruby, if I could work a few extra hours a week to keep Joseph company while he processes his wife's passing. Their home was very dark inside, even with all the lights and windows open. The decor was like a Gothic revival with a lot of wood accents. It was unsettling and beautiful at the same time. While doing a little cleaning around the house to kill some time as he slept, I noticed a huge collection of books and artifacts all over his home. There were a lot of books on philosophy, technology, alchemy, and books on magic. Statues, paintings, and sculptures from all around the world. One item in particular caught my eye. It was a Santa Muerte, or Lady of the Holy Death statue above their fireplace. A folk saint mainly worshipped in Mexico, but in recent years it seems to have gone all over the world. I noticed the offering bowl next to the saint has been empty, and judging from the spider webs, it's probably been empty a while. My train of thought was interrupted by screams from Joseph's room. I put 911 on speed dial and ran into his room in case he was having an attack of some sort. He was pointing at a blank wall with a sweeping motion, as if he was pointing out a group of people, and said, "Please escort them back to their car and make sure they don't steal anything on the way out." I play along to prevent him from having another outburst. I point to the door and kindly ask the blank wall to leave Mr. Joseph's home. I walk down the stairs for a minute, then I come back to his room to double check on him. He begins to tell me that his brother and some old work friends were trying to get him to go out of the house and they wanted to go ride motorcycles. At this point, he's 89 years old and can hardly walk for more than a few minutes, so I knew his mental health was just getting worse. I step outside for a few minutes to call his eldest daughter, Ruby, who lives a few miles away in Tarzana. She confirmed to me that all the names Joseph mentioned have all passed away, and that he has been reliving a lot of memories from his past recently. I thanked her for her time and went back to check on Joseph. I go into his room and it's completely empty. I felt all the blood leave my face as I run around the house to look for him. I check the restrooms and every room on the top floor, but no luck. I run downstairs and find him looking through the cabinets in the kitchen. With my entire body filled with adrenaline, I ask him, "What are you doing down here?" The stairs in his home are a complete death trap, so he's only allowed to go downstairs with assistance. According to his daughter, he broke 2 ribs last year falling down these stairs, so my concern was justified. His expression was different this time. He looked to be in a hurry. "Please help me gather some snacks for the kids. They'll be home from school soon." Before I could even respond, his eyes move away from me and focused on something behind me. He shuffles past me with a huge smile. He kneels to try and hug what looked to be a child from his reaction. He leaned forward and almost fell on his face. Luckily, I was right next to him, so I was able to break his fall. He looked at me with confusion. Then the look of embarrassment washed over his face, almost as if he were having a moment of clarity. He completely abandoned the snack hunt and asked me to take him upstairs and not mention to anyone, especially his daughter, of what just happened. I agreed and helped him back to his room. He decided that he wanted to go to bed, so I tuck him in. I put an old cowboy movie on the TV and I sit next to him as he falls asleep. Next day, I buy a baby monitor so I can keep an eye on him when I need to step out and prepare dinner. The last thing I want is for him to get hurt and for his family to think I am a negligent caregiver. Over time, Joseph became very attached to me, and he would express fear when he was left alone. 1 year after Grace passing, he has given up the will to keep going, constantly telling me that he wants to die already, but that God is punishing him by making him stay here longer all alone. I would try to be supportive, but he would always erupt in frustration and begin cursing God's name in another language I could not recognize. This behavior was new and I did not know how to approach it at first. I turned on the baby monitor, left him a snack, and gave him some space. I set my alarm for 30 minutes and I decide to take a break in the downstairs guest room while Joseph sleeps. I doze off for about 15 minutes before I am again woken up by Joseph yelling through the baby monitor. I quickly look at the screen as I run up the stairs. I see a figure sitting at the foot of his bed. It did not have any defining features other than the silhouette of a large man with broad shoulders. It had a physical aspect to it because it was depressing the sheets as it shifted around the bed. With my heart pumping out of my chest, I pre-dial 911 and make my way into his room. I run toward Joseph and I do a scan of the room. I look under the bed, I check the closet and all the windows. There is absolutely zero evidence of anything or anyone in the room besides Joseph. I look back at him and he is sobbing uncontrollably. I begin to feel a bit overwhelmed, but I keep it together enough to ask him what is wrong. I look into his eyes and they have this glossed over look to them, similar to people who sleepwalk with their eyes open. He acknowledged me by name, but his eyes were looking through me as he spoke. He says, "I am not a good man, Rose. I did not earn my place in this life through hard work. I lied, cheated, and sacrificed the ones I love in exchange for the world." Now, what I'm about to say is all alleged. This could very be Joseph's mind getting away from him and making things up. He proceeded to say that he took many lives during the Vietnam War, a morbid confession of a platoon of soldiers armed with M16 rifles, slaughtering civilians in cold-blooded murder. We couldn't get enough. It was like we were absorbing the souls of those we slaughtered in the name of war. During my time serving, I was introduced to Haitian voodoo magic through a brother-in-arms named Jacques. I decided I wasn't going back home with nothing. I was tired of working my butt off and never getting ahead. Tired of being disrespected and seen as an expendable piece by the government. I blamed God the Creator for all my problems and cursed His name, blaming Him for the decisions that I alone made. But I was too greedy, angry, tired, and afraid to look in the mirror for even a second. and take responsibility for my actions. I decided, with the help of 2 other men, to kidnap and sacrifice an enemy combative. That same week we were expecting a full moon, so we planned everything out to the T before going through with it. We went into town to gather supplies, including candles, matches, incense sticks, tobacco, alcohol, and dust made of animal bones from the local outdoor market. Later that evening, we knew if we waited by a main road, we would eventually come across enemy soldiers. We bury a remote plastic explosive at the edge of the road to blow out the tires of anyone driving by, and like clockwork, a Ural 375 is coming down the road towards us. We only see 2 soldiers in the vehicle, so we decide to engage. I set off the explosive that caused the truck to flip on its side. The driver immediately died on impact, but the passenger jumped out shooting. One of my men was hit in the leg and stomach and eventually bled out. We flanked the enemy and managed to disarm him. He pulls out a hidden .38 special and puts it straight to his head. The gun misfires. We lunge on him and hog-tie him to our Jeep. He didn't look like he would make it to morning, so we decided to move fast and perform the ritual sacrifice that night. We drank alcohol and burned tobacco to welcome the spirits into our makeshift camp. We burned candles and rehearsed our holy prayer to the lower spirit Ogu. When the full moon was at its peak, Jacques and I said our prayer, asked for everything you could think of, and offered our sacrifice. Without getting into too much detail, his new home was the bottom of the river. I should have taken it as a sign from God when the soldier broke free from the anchor strapped to his leg and managed to float away. We shot at him, but every bullet missed. We quickly knock over the candles and go back to base. I finished the rest of my tour and flew home that same month. I was a cold-hearted monster that deserved to die on that battlefield, but somehow I managed to weasel my way back into society after trying to pull that stunt. With absolutely zero knowledge of voodoo, I completely failed to realize that I summoned a demon that fateful night and failed to provide a worthy sacrifice. I opened a portal to an intelligent entity that does not like to be toyed with, and because of my horrible decisions, karma came back and flipped my world upside down. Within only a few years, those close to me began to die off under mysterious circumstances. First, my parents both died the same year because of a heart attack in their sleep. Not much after that, I lost my eldest sister and her husband in a car wreck that sent them to the bottom of a quarry. In a fit of panic, I gather supplies and attempt to contact the spirit of Ogu and settle my debt in the middle of my kitchen. I drank an entire bottle of vodka and waited for something to happen. I was desperate and with nothing to lose. I fall asleep and immediately dream that I'm swimming in the middle of a dark ocean and I'm able to feel things swim past my legs. I begin to cry and scream for forgiveness. I asked Ogu to please take my life and to leave my family alone. In that same moment, I felt arms pulling on my leg and dragging me down into the black water. I woke up covered in so much sweat that it looked like someone threw a bucket of water on me. I'm still very drunk at this point, but I notice a large man sitting across from me. I attempt to stand up. Before I can fully stand, I'm slammed down into my chair so hard that I hear wood splinter from the chair. A deep voice spoke and said, "Give me your firstborn on the blood moon and all your problems will leave you for as long as you live." I refused and offered my own life on the spot. I was wrong for all the senseless murder I did during the war, and I wanted to do the right thing and die. Unfortunately, I had no power to make demands. The demon made my tongue swell up like a balloon, and I slowly began to suffocate. He moves closer and says, "Your punishment is only beginning. You will worship me for as long as you live. I will provide you with all the riches you ask for, and I will leave your family alone as long as you say my prayer once a day. If you fail to keep your promise, I will wipe out your entire bloodline before your eyes and take you last." I agreed and sacrificed my life to the worship of this lower entity in exchange for a comfortable life for my family and myself. I embraced the lifestyle and became consumed with gluttony, sex, drugs, and resentment. I got clean for my kids' sake, but the damage was already done. I have spent the remainder of my life trying to repair the relationship with my wife, children, and my grandchildren. No one, including my wife, knew that I had a blood pact with a demon. I pretended my way through every family reunion, Christmas party, and birthday celebration. I always had this cloud over my head, and I couldn't tell a soul why without risking looking clinically insane. Eventually, my family put 2 and 2 together and figured out what was going on. I made them swear to me to never bring it up again. I spoiled them and gave them anything they asked for. If anything, it was just one big distraction. It made our family's relationship superficial and hollow. Any opportunity of genuine love and connection was lost in the home that the devil built. In my old age, I forget to say the prayer to Ogu. He returns every night to remind me about our bargain. I accept my fate and wait for the day Ogu comes to collect my soul. Our conversation was interrupted by the phone ringing. It was Ruby, his eldest daughter. She called to check in on everything. I didn't even have a moment to process Joseph's story, so I replied with, "Everything here is dandy and swell." She thanked me and said to give her a call if I needed anything. I walked back into the room to check on him. He has a peaceful smile on his face. I freak out thinking he's about to die on my watch after telling his daughter how great everything was. Joseph begins to giggle and says, "No, my dear Rose, I am not leaving you so soon." Telling my story to you has taken such a weight off of my shoulders. I have accepted my fate and will face anything coming my way like a man. If there is a creator, I apologize for the destruction I caused in his creation. Rose, I understand if you don't want to be here anymore. I'm sorry if I have ever hurt or offended you in any way. At this point, I had no idea what to say to contribute to the conversation. I tell him that I love him and his family. I'm a tough woman, and I will continue to take care of him for as long as I am able. To this day, nothing has followed me home. It is common to walk into Joseph's room and he will be having a full-blown conversation with no one, well, at least no one in physical form. I love my job and I continue taking care of Joseph as of today, February 3rd, 2024. I hope you use this story in one of your videos. I would love to read in the comments what your viewers think and if they have any similar experiences. I love your content and I wish you and anyone hearing this all the health and prosperity that they deserve. Best wishes, Rose.